Well, is that good? Okay. All the roots of violence and escalators of violence are obstacles to creating this type of society. But I would emphasize three today. And the first of these, it's one that Dave mentions a lot in his books, is the lack of understanding about past wars and their often complex and hidden causes, and the lack of awareness of alternatives, nonviolent alternatives that could have been taken with much more wonderful results without the cost upon humanity and environment. Second big obstacle, I would say, is the influence of certain psychological patterns, which I think are dominating foreign policy. Now, different authors and researchers call them by different names. We have Gordon Allport talks about the prejudiced personality. Edward Spranger speaks of the political value. George Lakoff writes of the strict father model. And then there's Ashley Montague, who writes about ungentled rats. And these four personalities have several overlapping traits, which I can talk about later if you're interested. But the primary commonality is that they perceive relationships in terms of power rather than love. And they have an underlying threat orientation. And you can imagine if these types are leading foreign policy and leading negotiations, you're going to have dismal results. For example, a negotiation run by the prejudiced personality or the strict father model, you'd have inequality in the negotiation where one party assumes it's superior to the other. The purpose is to secure the obedience of the inferior party to the superior. It's all about rewards and punishments. And when I looked at negotiations between the UN and Iraq back around the time of the Persian Gulf War, it really looked like the strict father model to me, where the UN was just telling Iraq what to do and not allowing for a mutually created agenda either. So Iraq couldn't place its ideas and concerns on the table. For example, with inspectors, Iraq was reluctant to have inspectors come in because it was afraid Americans would be on the inspection team and then use it as an opportunity to spy on Iraq, give the information to the military, and then they could use that information to better bomb Iraq. And that's actually what they were trying to do. But the UN wouldn't let Iraq keep Americans off the team. So those types of relationships cause dismal negotiations. But the third point is the one I really want to dwell on. And I think it's important to realize what's going on. We have an established religion in this country. It's the established religion of wealth, war, and control. It's a secular religion, and so it's crept in unnoticed into this secular society, and it's accepted. But even though it's not official, and even though there's no supernatural deities, although you could talk about Mars and Pluto and Phobos, it acts and looks and has the effect of a religion. The designers of the Constitution purposely created a secular constitution because they didn't want one ideology being entangled with the military and political force of government. They wanted to, in particular, not repeat their ancestors' experiences in Europe of 150 years of bloody wars and persecution due to religious beliefs. But it wasn't precisely the mix of religion with government that caused the cruelty. It was the mixing of political, legal, and military force with cold hearts and official creeds, because Christianity had been hijacked. Any ideology can be hijacked by people who value status, rivalry, obedience, punishment, dogma. They can gut the essence of any ideology, whether it's democracy, Islam, Marxism, or Christianity. And in this case, in Europe, Christianity had been hijacked, and Jesus' priority of love and his disregard for power and wealth had been displaced by church and royalty preoccupations with status, obedience, rivalry, land, wealth. Now, secularism, as I said, was intended to keep one ideology from being entangled with government. And there were three major purposes to this, I would say. The first is to avoid the bloodshed and wars. The second was to prevent one ideology from oppressing all the others. And the third was to create a government guided by reason and truth, a government that created sensible policies. But we don't have any of this because of this established religion of wealth, war, and control. And you can see it in action. You can see it in the enormous amount of violence in our overt and covert foreign policy. You can see it in the blind faith in which trillions of dollars are poured into the war machine. with a blind faith that these blood and money sacrifices will ensure our protection and our salvation. It's just like thousands of years ago when people with blind faith poured in sacrifices to the deities, thinking that this would protect them. And you see the religion also in its creed. I call it the 12-step creed. This is the creed of the established religion. 1, the purpose of human relations is to control and use others to serve ourselves. 2, mangling the truth gives us control. 3, mangling people gives us truth. 4, threats, bribes, and torture make others behave. 5, the highest form of intelligence is intelligence from spies and interrogators. 6, there is no higher pursuit than the pursuit of wealth and power. 7, some of us have more wealth and power than others, and we're more moral, we're superior. 8, those who hinder the flow of wealth and power to us are our enemies. 9, the enemy is the devil, so devoid of positive motivation and reason that we cannot and must not befriend him, understand him, cooperate with him, make peace with him. We must destroy him. 10, our use of violence is divine. 11, nature is here to serve us and to bring us wealth. And 12, land and all species of life can be obliterated as we pursue our goals. That's what I see as the 12-step creed of the established religion. And it violates the First Amendment, which prohibits an established religion, and it also violates Article 6, which prohibits religious tests for public office. If we don't have a religious test for high office, why is it that the top 2 presidential candidates from the 2 dominating parties are always this wealthy man who wants war in this way, or this wealthy man who wants war in that way? It's a required identity, a required worldview. And most Americans, most founders of world religions could not pass this test. Jesus wouldn't pass this test. He doesn't bribe. He can't be bought. He cares about the poor. He treats others with kindness. He tells us to love our enemies. And his lack of power and wealth are proof of divine disgrace, obviously. And some people would think that Jesus' predicted failure to pass this test is proof that secularism is working. But it's not. That's not what it means. It's a symptom of the oppression of the secular religion, of the established religion of wealth, war, and control. And this religion oppresses so many people. Not only its victims, but it oppresses Buddhists, Christians, freethinkers, Jews, Muslims, Native Americans, polytheists, everyone who places a priority on love, peace, compassion, understanding. And it oppresses all who believe that the devil is not the other side of war. The devil is the war. Thank you.